morning. I want to bring the August meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. If you will call the roll, please.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Here.
Mr. Harless?
Yes.
Ms. Bowden?
Yes.
Ms. Cliff? Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Chairman Sisson?
Yes. All right, now that we've established a quorum, I have a few announcements. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded, so anyone who speaks before this body tonight will need to be sworn in. This time, I'll swear in the staff. If you will please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, the second announcement is that, and also, if you come and present to this commission, we ask that you come to the lectern. Be sure to speak into the microphone so that we can all hear and your voice can be picked up in the recording. The next announcement is that all of our motions will be made in the affirmative. As a result, that does not mean that the person making the motion or seconding the motion will actually vote for the motion when the roll is called. And anyone wishing to speak to us tonight, when you come to the podium, you will be sworn in. We ask that you state your name and address so it can be entered into the record. All right, our next item on the agenda is to address the minutes of the June 11th meeting. The minutes have been distributed among the commission members. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If you will please call the roll.
Ms. Cliff?
Yes.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Yes.
Mr. Harless?
Yes.
Ms. Bowden?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Chairman Sisson?
Yes. Our next item on the agenda is case number 19933 regarding 7254 Neshoba Road. At this time, I'd like to ask staff for their report. They'll come to the lectern.
Thank you, Chairman Sisson. So the item before you today is a use on appeal for a new cell tower to be located within an existing MLG&W tower. The property is located off of Neshoba Road, across from, somewhat adjacent across from Riverdale School, next to the Fulmer property. As you can see, most of the property around it is zoned residential. However, all along here are easements for MLG&W and TVA. You can see that a little bit better here. These are TVA and MLG&W easements. So this is the subject property, outlined in blue. And on this property, there are two towers. The proposed cell tower will be located in the northern tower there. Presently, there we go. This is the site plan of the area, and this is Neshoba Road. The tower would be accessed off of Neshoba Road through a driveway here, and there would be an equipment enclosure right next to the tower. The equipment enclosure would have a fence around it, a 6-foot-high wooden fence, and a landscape buffering. As you can see here, there would be trees planted along here. That is then also showing, again, the landscaping and the grade changes in the area. Here's an elevation drawing of the tower. So the tower itself will be located, as mentioned, right within the MLG&W tower. It would be a single-use tower for Verizon. Verizon is the applicant with the property owner on this request. Cell towers are allowed in this area with a use on appeal through the Board of Zoning Appeals per section 23-86H. Here is a photo simulation coming along Neshoba Road, and this is what the tower would look like. This simulation does not include the equipment enclosure, which would be right about here. Staff is recommending that the equipment enclosure be moved to the other side of the transmission tower so that it'll be somewhat more screened. In reviewing whether or not a cell tower is a good use in a residential area, there are a variety of criteria as listed in the zoning ordinance. One, the parcel must have a minimum of 200 feet along public street frontage, which this does along Neshoba Road. The tower must be set back from property lines a minimum distance of the tower's height plus 10 feet. This tower, going back to the site plan and the aerial view, it would not be set back that required distance from the property lines. However, the tower is being located within an MLG&W transmission tower that is existing, so that existing transmission tower is dictating its location from setback from the property lines. Another criteria is that all associated buildings and structures must meet the minimum setback distances for the zoning district. The equipment closure would meet that in both locations, either the proposed location or the recommended location. The applicant's engineer must provide documentation that the wireless transmission facility meets or exceeds the ANSI standards for radio frequency emissions. The applicant has submitted that, and that is in part of the package online. The maximum tower height is 140 feet. As seen here, it is 125 feet to the midpoint of the antenna array. The tower shall be designed for shared use. It is shared with the existing transmission tower. These type of cell towers that are located within existing transmission towers can typically only accommodate one carrier. Thus, the tower, it would be exclusively for Verizon. And the last criteria is a minimum buffer strip of 50 feet is required on the outer perimeter of the property. As you can see here, there is not a 50-foot landscape buffer that screens this as it is on the MLG&W and TBA easement. So the two exceptions that this tower approval requires are from the property line and with the 50-foot landscaping buffer around the perimeter of the property. Should the Board of Zoning Appeals approve this request, the request will then move to the Planning Commission for approval of the site plan, and then also to the Design Review Commission for approval of the landscaping and also approval of the waiver of the buffer requirement should that be approved tonight. Finally, the cell tower will advance to the Board of Zoning, or not the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the development contract approval. There were some comments from other departments, such as Public Works and Engineering, included in your staff report. Those comments should be addressed at the Planning Commission phase, the site plan phase. And that concludes staff's report. The applicant's agent is here for questions.
All right. Does anyone have questions of the staff? All right, thank you very much. At this time, is there somebody on behalf of the applicant that would like to speak?
Hello, Cece Drayton here from Baker Donaldson Law Firm on behalf of the applicant Verizon Wireless. I want to say Sarah did a
Just if you could state your address.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
165 Madison Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee.
And then if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right.
Yes.
Continue.
So Sarah did a phenomenal job of making the staff presentation. The only thing that I would add to that is Verizon, of course, will do whatever the BZA is asking in terms of the equipment enclosure being relocated, but we kind of feel like even if it is relocated to the opposite side, the screening isn't necessarily going to be better. So with that in mind, I mean, the goal here is to, as she stated, it will be a fenced equipment compound, so it's going to be enclosed. It'll have a wooden fence, 8 feet in height. The buffer requirements have been satisfied. There will be the landscaping that will be provided as well in accordance with the ordinance requirements. So we're you know, again, we're willing to cooperate in whatever manner the board sees fit here, but we would certainly rather keep our proposed location with regard to the equipment enclosure. The purpose of this request is essentially just to provide the best level of coverage in this area as possible. I believe there's Riverdale Elementary, there's Riverdale Park, there's Forgy Park in addition to the residents that are in this neighborhood, and Verizon just seeks to expand its coverage as well as to enhance the existing 911 services. I think Sarah, in her staff report, included the heat maps to show what the coverage would look like once the installation is made of the monopole tower. So the coverage certainly is going to be greatly improved. MLGW is on board. We have talked to them. We've obtained approval. We've gotten the property owner's approval. So we're actually, ready to move forward. I believe that we've satisfied the application requirements, pretty much satisfied the ordinance requirements aside from the two issues that Sarah pointed out. One of the things that she also stated was just about the setback, and as she stated, the tower itself, based on where it is, I mean, we're going to be in there, so the setback requirement is one of the things that we're kind of like inheriting based on where the existing transmission tower is. So just in light of the existing precedent of this board having approved a similar cell tower being located within a transmission tower owned by MLGW, Verizon would certainly request that this request for use on appeal be approved as well.
All right, thank you very much. Is there questions of the applicant representative?
Thank you, Ms. Drayton. One of the requirements, item under A3, under staff comments, as far as renaming the tower, it's currently on all documents that y'all have presented as Forgy Park. That's the name of our park. One thing that would be helpful would, since it's no longer Forgy Park or located at Forgy Park, one thing that would be helpful that I believe to be clear about where the tower will be located would be to list it as the address of 7254 Neshoba Road on any documents that come before the city, before the Planning Commission, so we can be assured that our residents understand where it is and where it isn't.
Sure.
Would that be? I know that you've seen the staff comments. Do you believe that would be any problem from your end?
Well, I have spoken to Verizon about it, and it's my understanding that the name Forgy Park was basically used as an internal reference for Verizon based on its search ring. And from that place, when they used that name for the search ring, it translated into the site name, again, for
Certainly.
Verizon's internal use. However, one of the things that I did note to Sarah about this same issue is that each of the documents that has been submitted to the city of Germantown does include 7254 Neshoba Road on every single document.
It does,
yeah.
but in big letters, it says Forgy Park. And so if there were a way, as it were to move through a process with the city, for that to be omitted, that would be very helpful. Again, if a reporter were to get this, they're going to say Forgy Park. It's confusing.
Sure.
So I would like for that to be cleared up.
Absolutely. I'll take that back to Verizon.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions, comments at this point? Anyone else? I would note that as the BZA, part of what we are tasked to do is to look at issues related to the safety of this use on appeal. And there were some comments from the staff, including, putting some kind of barrier or gate on the driveway to just prevent anyone from accidentally or intentionally coming onto this property, once it gets built. So I think that would be something that I would hope Verizon would consider. Under B6 on the staff comments. And I know that this same item will be something that the Planning Commission and the Design Review Commission will also review in more detail with the site plan.
Right.
So I would encourage you to make sure that is something addressed so that the safety aspect is looked at.
Yes.
And then as far as placement of the enclosure, again, that's something that the Planning Commission and the DRC is gonna look at. Our planning chairman also serves on this board, so, you'll see him again. But one of the staff comments was making sure that the driveway is long enough for anybody to turn around, any of your technicians to turn around and be able to enter back onto the public streets without creating any, danger to vehicular traffic. So I would encourage you to look at that just from a, safety standpoint when you come to get, because you'll need to seek, approval from those commissions. So, sorry. I saw a flash over here as somebody trying to get my attention. Any other, like I said, any other comments? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you. All right.
your presentation. At this point, I will ask if there's anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this request. If you'll come to this stand. Again, please state your name and your address.
My name is Charles Watson. I live at 1973 Valverde in Germantown.
Okay. If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
I am in favor of this new service for safety aspects. There's a big void in this area of Germantown. Many people do not use landlines any longer. They're using cell phones for everything. The ability to contact police, fire is essential. And so I don't really have any problem with whether it's called Forgy Park or an address. The tower's there. There are other towers in that dog park. There's a Sprint tower. It doesn't have a gate. It just has a fence around the equipment. So unless it's going to apply to, and how can it apply retroactively to other carriers? I don't really think you got to have a fence or a gate. Certainly, I think they've got enough turnaround space as it's designed, but I haven't looked at it up close. So I'm all in favor of cellular service. What I fear is going to happen in the future with 5G is that there are going to be cities that are restrictive, and they're not going to have the 5G upgrades. And it's going to be a case of haves and have-nots. And I don't want to go back to riding in a horse and buggy. I want to have the latest and the greatest. And so I would vote in favor and ask you to vote in favor of this service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the variance? I'm sorry, not the variance, the use on appeal. At this time, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of the use on appeal? All right. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second. At this, so I'm going, or Frank, would you mind reading the motion that you have made?
All right, let's find it here. Where is it? Put on my eyes. Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
My motion is to approve a use on appeal to allow a 125-foot tall wireless transmission facility, cell tower, to locate within an MLG&W transmission tower at 7254 Neshoba Road in the R Single Family Residential Zoning District. Subject to the board's discussion, staff comments noted in the staff report, and the site plan submitted with the application.
Thank you very much. And now that we've had that motion and a second, if you will please call the roll.
Okay. Ms. Bowden?
Yes.
Ms. Cliff?
Yes.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Yes.
Mr. Harless?
Just a comment. I totally agree with the citizen who just recently spoke that we are woefully short in coverage in this area. If you see all the yellow, and the first time we have a 911 call and we're unable to respond to it because it doesn't go through, somebody's going to lose their life. And it's all because we don't have good coverage. We need this coverage. We need it throughout Germantown, and we need it as quickly as possible. I vote yes.
Alderman Gibson?
I also vote yes. I would like to clarify or expound on Chairman Harless's comments that we are thankful that Verizon has brought this forward. There is clearly a gap, and we hope to see more carriers bring things to us to address those gaps. I vote yes.
Chairman Sisson?
For the reasons so articulately made prior, I also vote yes. So that motion has now been passed. At this time, is there any old business that needs to come in front of our commission? Any new business? There being none, I hereby adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
That was quick.